Hello and welcome to Middle Eastern American Television. I'm your host, Sarah Massoud. Today we have a very special guest with us, Judge Shelia Johnson of the 46th District Court and a candidate for the Justice for the Michigan Supreme Court.
She's an extraordinary judge.
She's fair. She's a hard worker.
She has the capacity to produce.
She's a great person. She's a great friend.
She's well prepared.
She's a dependable person.
She's very patient.
She has compassion for people.
She's got a very sharp intellect.
If you ever want somebody that's going to be at your back and be supportive of you, it would be Judge Shelia.
I've got the educational background and the experience to give solid, legally sound decisions on that court. It all started in Detroit, Michigan. I was born. And not too long after birth, my mother moved down to her home state of Mississippi because my father went to Chicago for medical school. So I accompanied her down there, and most of my early years were spent up until school down with my grandparents in Mississippi. My grandfather was the principal of a colored high school, and there was a lot of segregation at the time. And I grew up to learn that there were a lot of injustices. And I think that's what formed my desire to become a lawyer in later life.
I remember saying to her one day, not too many years ago, I said, you know, my father would be proud to know that you are a lawyer and now you are a judge.
Mother was also an educator along with her mother and her father. I think that's where I've got a lot of my drive and determination is from her.
When she was in school, she was able to advance herself in many subjects.
After my father finished school, we moved back to Detroit. I ended up doing my junior high and high school and at Kingswood School, Cranbrook. I became very proficient with my studies because of my experiences there and was able to then be accepted at Dartmouth College. I decided to come back to the state of Michigan for law school. University of Michigan was one of the top 3 law schools in the country, and it was a wonderful educational experience. I was able to meet some very good friends along the way.
Our relationship as friends goes back over 30 years ago when we were in law school at the University of Michigan. We ended up sitting next to each other, and we were both from Detroit, and we began to share experiences and just became very, very close through that encounter. I got pregnant in law school. My husband and I decided to have a child. That she carried my books, she took my notes, she came to the hospital. I was able to read 2 months worth of notes without ever attending a day of class and take 17 credits and graduate, largely because of her.
I wanted to do something a little bit different. I obtained a federal clerkship, and so I began my quest into the scholarly side of the law. That foundation really took me a long way into understanding what it takes to be a good judge. After the clerkship, I came back and worked at a major law firm in the city of Detroit.
She was a type of young lady who was always looking for more, climbing the ladder, trying to reach wherever she wanted to go.
I like the aspect of working for the people, defending people's rights, their liberties. That began my solo practice. And I practiced in just about every area of the law, which really helped me when I assumed the bench. I've been on the district court bench for about 10 years now. I was elected in 2002, the first African-American judge to serve in the district, and I was really proud of that.
I've argued numerous cases in front of Judge Johnson the past 5 years. She's prepared, she knows what the cases are about, she is punctual, and she treats everybody fairly. Even when she rules against you, you know that your client got a fair deal. Even when you lose a case in front of Judge Johnson, you know that you lost it on the law. She's well-read, well-studied. I mean, she knows her cases up and down.
She's able to give to the community, always there on time, always willing to help, and goes beyond expectation.
I started the Court and Schools program as a deterrent for criminal activity for youth and to give them an opportunity to choose great career paths. We take our whole court docket into a high school, it can be a middle school, and we've even had requests from elementary schools. And we set up shop there, so to speak, in the auditorium. And it is actual court sessions. These young people need to see what's expected when you get involved in the system and the problems that come with it.
So she's got that varied experience. She is going to be an extraordinary Supreme Court justice. I think she'll be one of the most well-qualified justices, jurists ever to sit on the bench.
I think our Supreme Court will need people who can bring together, build a consensus. She's extremely good at that.
I'm cognizant of women's issues. I'm cognizant of family issues. I know that I'll be able to be very effective as a justice of the Supreme Court.
Okay, first of all, I just want to say how influential this woman is. She is the first African American to serve as a judge in the 46th District Court and the first African American female district court judge in Oakland County, Michigan.
Correct.
That's a pretty big title. Go ahead and tell us a little bit about your past 10 years of being, because you were elected in 2002.
Correct.
And now you are the candidate running for the Michigan State Supreme Court. Just tell us a little bit about your past 10 years and your background and what you've been doing.
Well, as you said, I was elected. And first of all, before I get into that, just say thank you for having me here. I really appreciate the opportunity to be on your show. But I was elected back in 2002, and I ran in not just Southfield, because my court has jurisdiction in the city of Southfield, and that's where we're located, but we also serve the communities of Lathrop Village, Bingham Farms, Beverly Hills, Franklin, and Southfield Township. So that's a pretty large community, everything from about 8 Mile Road on down to 14 Mile, then from Greenfield down to Inkster. And so all of the constituents had to vote for me in order for me to be elected. And I did at that time unseat a current judge that was in the position. So it was a very meaningful election for me, not only for the historical value of being the first African American to serve, but just having the trust and confidence of the people of the whole district that I would be a wonderful addition to that bench. I would bring a varied viewpoint to the bench. I would be fair, and they put their trust and confidence in me. And so I've served there for about 10 years now. I was re-elected unopposed. I ran unopposed in 2008. And since being on the court, I've served in various capacities. I've served as Chief Judge Pro Tem of the court, meaning that's more of an administrative capacity where you stand in to make administrative decisions when the chief judge is unavailable. And so I worked in that capacity until just a few months ago, when my colleague on the bench now has an opportunity to serve in that capacity. And I've created a number of programs. We had a drug court that I was instrumental, along with the other 2 judges, in creating back several years ago, where people who had problems with alcohol, ours mostly was an alcohol-related court. So we created that where people could have an opportunity, rather than come through the system, to have an opportunity to try to work on their problem, have some incentives to help them be structured, and to that way try to conquer their alcohol problems and their dependencies. And so that was a very successful program that we ran up until several years ago. Also, I personally have a court and school program that myself and Judge Cooper, who used to be on our bench, we used to go together, and now I'm continuing that legacy of going into the school systems to actually hold actual court sessions that we do in any school level, whether it's elementary up to high school. And we try to inspire the children to see good career choices by seeing all of the type of career possibilities there are in the law, but more importantly, to try to deter them from criminal behavior by showing them actual court cases. So we pack up our whole court staff. All of the cases are heard at a local school, and then we take questions thereafter. And that way we're giving back to the community in such a way that hopefully we're keeping people out of the system and inspiring them as well to make career choices in the law.
And so it's been a great 10 years of serving the district, and I could work here, you know, forever, because I really feel an affinity towards the people in our community. I'm always working hard in the community and extra work activities as well. Being a member of the Community Foundation for Southfield, getting out and doing work at the different churches, my church in particular, which is Hope United Methodist Church, where I've been a ministry leader. I've just been active and accessible, which is what I think a district judge should be, because it's more of a community court. And we have jurisdiction over a number of community type offenses, such as small claims cases where people want to sue for money, but they don't have a lawyer, and they can sue right now for a value up to $3,000. And so they can come in, tell their story to the court, and then the judge tries to make a decision based on what's fair and equitable and applying the law. And that kind of might remind you of those television shows that you see where the people stand and tell the judge the story, although we don't let it get too out of hand, and we try to keep everything as respectful, tactful, and no arguing and fighting and all that. But it's a very similar process. We also have jurisdiction over regular civil cases where people do have lawyers and they're suing for money up to about $25,000 or less. And so usually those are significant civil type cases where it could be anything from breach of a contract to, which could be something like a collection case where maybe you haven't paid a bill, or it could be that you had a contract with somebody to buy something and they didn't do it, or they didn't pay you if you had a service that you gave to them. So we hear those. And we also hear cases that are criminal in nature. Usually we will have total jurisdiction over misdemeanors. So anything where someone's committed a crime under any of the city or village ordinances or under state law, where the maximum penalty is up to 1 year in jail. So we will sentence people, if convicted, on those offenses. Anything that requires a prison sentence is at another court, but we do hold the first hearings on those felony charges. And those felony charges have a hearing called a preliminary hearing, and that's what we hold at the district court to determine if there is enough evidence against those persons charged with an offense to support charging them. And if we find that there are, then we send the case over to the circuit court for trial. If not, then we might dismiss the case if it's warranted. That if there's not enough evidence, it could get dismissed at our level court. So we're very busy. We handle landlord-tenant cases where people have property and maybe you don't pay your rent, so you're being possibly evicted. You have to come to court to evict somebody or to be evicted. And so we handle those type of cases. Or if somebody might have lost their home due to mortgage foreclosure, then the new owners that purchased it at the sale still can't just evict a person. They have to come to court and show that they bought the property and that they bought it through the proper procedure. And so we handle those type of cases, as well as the common traffic cases where, you know, you ran a red light or made a right turn when you shouldn't have, or crossed the line went the wrong way on a one-way street. Any traffic violations and driving offenses we handle as well. So we're considered to be the busiest district court in Oakland County.
Now, you just mentioned a little bit about your past 10 years of work, your recent work as well, and let's kind of go back a little bit. You've done this, you have 18 years of experience, over 18 years of experience.
18 before I got on the bench.
Before you got on the bench, and while I was reading your background a little bit, what really interested me was how you've handled one half of the court's 600 docketed cases. And that's really important because before you're seated as a judge, you help prepare the judge to make decisions.
Exactly.
So obviously you've had the process of gradually achieving the seat to a hierarchy position. And so that people could see that where you come from, you've had an experience, but a very qualified experience. You're very well educated, and you presume in that in your workforce as well. So let's talk a little bit about obviously you just mentioned a little bit about the variety of cases that you've handled, but as the district court does handle many cases, what kind of cases did you handle the most out of those that you listed? And out of those, what interests you the most to go to court?